I'm totally locked in for some Red Rising.
Yeah, the background, dude, that is what was missing all along. How special is that?
You know, I think it's what we needed.
Oh, hey, look, I got this, but then look what I picked up today.
I got books 2 and 3 delivered yesterday.
I got a disease, man. Like, instead of just buying the trilogy and I know I'll need it, I buy one book at a time so I have an excuse
Me too.
to go back. But yeah, dude. Oh. What a awesome book, man. Hey, you want to know what I was thinking? What is that?
Oh, are these the wings?
Yeah. It's
these
a wing.
Are the gold wings, the lapel. The lapel that
the gold sigil is
yeah.
That's the 2 wings. So I think it could either be that and it's red instead of gold, like Red Rising. So you've thought about this. Are you thinking about this for the first time?
I'm thinking about it for the first time.
Wow, you really stole the thunder then. That was great for you to think about that so quickly. I had just had that revelation, but yeah, I think it's the gold sigil or whatever. Only red. The other thing I thought it could be is the necklace he wears is a Pegasus. And
that's a good point.
That's a good point. I think you're right though. Like at first I thought it could be the Pegasus. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. And it's the color of the hemathis flower. But more likely it's the gold sigil and it's a wing.
Yeah, when because I'm thinking it's when let me go to the carving. I think it's when they forgot what the guy's name was that takes him
Mickey.
To Mickey, when when they meet Mickey and they throw down the wings and they say like, we want you to make this.
Yeah. So
Dancer throws it down.
That's the sigil on their hands. For golds. So I think that's probably what it is. But anyways, man, yeah, let's definitely talk plot here. But to your earlier point, we may have some new audience members because this is our first foray into science fiction. At least that's like the main topic of what we're talking about. So yeah, so I'm Trevor, and you can see WBV there, and he looks good. And that, oh man, I love it. I love to see that smile, even when
we're so baby. Trevor, tell them where you are right now.
I am in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia, about 20 minutes outside of a small town called Harrisonburg, and I'm calling from an RV that I've been living out of. And for the last 10 days, I'm in between houses. I just bought a new home, and so I'm waiting to get keys. And I made lemonade out of lemons, and that's why we're virtual.
That's right, baby.
We're recording in Wesley's basement, and you can go back and watch some of our other videos that we've done. We just wrapped up a trilogy from Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn Era 1, and that was fantastic. And that's why Wes and I started this podcast, was actually to talk about what we thought was going to be the pursuit of something legendary, and it did not disappoint. Sanderson was awesome. But we want to keep the train going. And so Wes and I had a podcast where we went book to book, plot to plot, and talked about all the different reads on deck, and ended up selecting Red Rising.
We did. If you're at all interested in how we got to Red Rising, there's a great video on how we did process of elimination, which ultimately ended up in us disregarding our choice and flipping a coin, and we ended up on Red Rising. And wow, are we glad that we did, because I think I read this book in a total of like 12 hours, and it blew me away.
Yeah. I will say though, before we dive into Red Rising, if y'all want to kind of support us and follow this reading journey that we're on here, give us a subscribe. We're close to hitting 100 subs. We've got an ardent, a small but ardent and mighty community of plot goblins that are following us and contributing to the community. So it'd just be cool to get more comments and stuff on. What I thought about the book. We do a lot of predicting in some of our earlier episodes and things like that, which make it fun to contribute as kind of like a book club type thing.
Yeah.
But
well, and for Red Rising, we, due to our situations, we read the whole book, but I'm sure we'll get back to splitting the books in half going forward. So,
but dude, what a crazy book, man.
Darrow, what a guy.
So I will say this. I've thought about how to describe this. Actually, I was in Barnes & Noble today to pick up the second book, and she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, I've been meaning to read this trilogy." She goes, "What would you say about it?" I go, "Okay, I've only read Red Rising, but I would say it's the Hunger Games meets Lord of the Flies meets John Wick." That's kind of what it is.
It's total. I've heard Game of Thrones and Hunger Games. I've heard Hunger Games and some other connections, but I've never heard the John Wick connection. And wow, is John Wick such a great add-in to those connections.
It does feel Lord of Fliesy because these are kids. You can't forget. These are like starts it when he's like 16, man. He just is in there for years. He doesn't leave till he's 18. Which is crazy, that sort of simulated experience that they put them through. But it's kind of like you drop kids off on an island and make them fight it out. And like, that is the Lord of the Flies. So it definitely has that element. And so much of what I love. Did you ever read Lord of the Flies in school probably? Or
long time ago?
It's like it's a really good book, like it's a bunch of kids duking it out just like this, and like, they grow up quick and they form factions and a society and a hierarchy, and they do crazy stuff, and part of them turns savage and they feral, and it's kind of crazy. So there's that aspect, and then obviously so much Hunger Games in this for sure. Like, that comparison is valid, and I'm sure he drew a lot of it I have to imagine he drew a lot of inspiration from the Hunger Games when he wrote this. I don't know which one came out first.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up. Red Rising, 2014, January 28th, 2014. So that's got to be, see when Hunger Games 1 came out. Book 1 release date, 2008. So yeah, I would say that there's definitely probably some takeaways there.
It came out in 2008. Yeah, for sure, dude. And also, that was a book series before it was like a movie and stuff like that. So
yeah, no. So the first book of Hunger Games came out 2008. Red Rising book came out 2014.
Oh, so yeah, there must be some. I mean, there's inspiration drawn for sure, but I mean, it's very unique. It's very its own. And. So for this episode, dude, I was thinking, if you're open to it, and you can shoot this down if you want, but I took some photos. So I didn't like do as many handwritten notes. I have some handwritten notes, but I took a lot of notes in the book, and took photos of some of my favorite passages and some of my favorite things that happened. Would you be open to me sharing my screen and flipping through some of those photos?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
I feel like that could be fun. Maybe before I do that, though, what did you... I'm going to give you 3 words to describe Red Rising. and I want you to think long and hard, puppy doggy, about your 3 words, but not too long.
Yeah, no, I would, you know, the first one that I have to say is exhilarating.
Yeah.
The next one would be is tumultuous the right word? I don't know if tumultuous is the right word. I'm trying to think of something other than heartbreaking. Tumultuous. Maybe tumultuous, excited, confused, disorderly, making a loud, confused noise, uproarish. Okay, so I'll say whatever the first one was, I already forgot. And then yes, exhilarating, heart pounding, and my other one would be just sad.
Yeah.
I was sad for a good portion of the book.
Yeah.
But in the best possible way. Like listening to your favorite emo band where you're like, God, this music is sad, but it's getting me so fired up, and I just want to keep listening to more. It brings back good memories. I just had so much emotion that I could not stop turning the page.
Yeah. I will say my 3 are shocking, clever, and heart-wrenching.
Yeah, heart-wrenching for sure.
The thing that I actually, and I think this is something I actually wrote down in here that I really.
Now I will say that if you've made it this far, good for you. Keep watching. We are chock full of spoilers. So if you don't want a spoiler, don't keep listening. Watch after you finish the book. But this is going to be full of spoilers, so just be warned.
Great point. And I actually, in all of the video descriptions that I make, I put in bold spoiler. This is a spoiler podcast with caution signs and everything, because there's nothing worse than clicking into something and it being spoiled. And so I do try really hard to tell people that. But the thing that one of the things I like, so those are my 3 words: shocking, clever, and heart-wrenching. This is the definition of a page turner. And, it was, his writing style to me felt very punchy. Like, what was interesting is we went from Sanderson, who's more eloquent and drawn out and, really verbose, to somebody who said more with less and was able to create sort of this suspense through his writing style. It felt like watching a scary movie, or not a scary movie, but like a thriller. It was, so that's what you said, exhilarating. Like another word would be thrilling, because there were points where I was just reading and I wanted to jump forward 4 sentences to see what was happening instantly. Yeah, and very punchy. And I actually, so one of the photos I'll show you of a passage shows what I mean by that, and I felt his writing style was that way.
And I could save this thought for later, but I don't want to lose it. Like, you say thriller movie, but when I think of thriller movie, I think of you're on the edge of your seat and then you get punched at the end with like a good twist. Whereas,
well, you did say one of your words was heart pounding.
Yeah, it was heart pounding because his writing style was so direct. But I would say one of my bigger complaints coming off of a Sanderson, where it's coming from multiple perspectives and you read one chapter and you may not get closure on that scene for 4 hours of reading. Whereas this one, you finish the chapter and there was very little left to be unsaid about what had happened in there. It just kept going scene by scene by scene. So I would consider it more action movie than thrilling, because I didn't think that there were many
action
twists.
Movie. Good
I didn't
call.
think there weren't many twists to be had, where it was just more so like what is going to happen next versus what could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of question marks at the end of a chapter.
Yeah, agreed. I would definitely agree with that. So I amended from thriller to more of an action movie, but it read that way. And that definitely goes into my overarching thoughts of the story. So part of this podcast, we can talk about our ratings. I'm glad we got our 3 words out of the way. I think it's just fun. I I want to relive this story with you. I liked it that much. So I kind of want to actually show photos of the pages that I marked, and
please do.
Let's read them together and just kind of relive this because it was a really special experience. I think, and what a great.
Did you happen to have
get into sci-fi too? You made it very.
Oh clear. Yeah. I did not. I read Leviathan Wakes, and it was just so scientific. And I'm somebody that really.
This is very. How is this? I guess this is sci-fi, but to me, this just seemed like a fiction story.
I mean, I think anything that takes place in space in the future is sci-fi. It's got to take place in space and have physics involved and whatnot. Yeah. I think a fiction book could take place in my backyard, but maybe the ants can talk to me, or I find a dragon or whatever. If the ants can talk to me or I find a dragon, I consider that more fantasy, but a fiction book could take place in my backyard, but maybe the story is just about my neighbors with a different name.
Yeah, so I guess it's like modern, very modern sci-fi that read like Hunger Games kind of, or something like that, which is just monster and so I don't know what you would call that. I guess it's in the sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away the fact that they're in space and that people have gravity boots and some of the technology, this book could easily be written in the Middle Ages where they're playing Game of Thrones, in the woods.
Well, they are actually not human. They're human, but not human. Because they are gold, they're pink, they're gray, they're I suspect that they are bred that way and born that way. It's not like everybody paints themselves pink or purple or violet or whatever, right? So it is it's so it is science fiction in that it's he has built a world, and the world includes people that resemble humans and have our capabilities that we're familiar with, but some of them have 12 fingers, or there's just some different, there's subtle differences that make it.
Well, and I think one of my favorite parts about the book is I'm somebody that's very big about trying to visualize what's happening when I'm reading. And I know Trevor is really trying to get better about that, but he makes it very easy to visualize what's happening. He's not just flexing his imagination and the physics of sci-fi and talking about the gravity and the nuts and bolts of a rocket ship like some of this other intense sci-fi is. And I think that's why this makes this such an amazing entrance into the sci-fi genre, because it's not so technical.
No.
Like I said, if you wipe away some of the technology and realize that they're on a different planet, this could be Middle Ages, or Vikings, Game of Thrones.
Could be any. Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. You made the comparison to Game of Thrones. There's a lot of, this is a wartime strategy now, book. There's so much in this novel, talks about military tactics and strategies.
Yeah. Art of War, Sun Tzu, baby.
And there are houses, 12 houses. So if anything, that's what you're getting with this book. It is not traditional science fiction. It is fast paced. It's thrilling. It's heart pounding. It's a page turner, punchy, shocking, characters that you love, enough backstory that you understand the world that you're in, but not so much that you're bored by the details. Honestly, I think we just did our first spoiler free review because we haven't.
I would say so.
Yeah, that's funny. We're really bad at that. I think both you and I want to get into the details when we talk about something, but that was pretty good spoiler free. And then now everything from here will have definite spoilers.
I know you're gonna share, some screenshots, but I am very interested in what your favorite chapter was.
Oh, well, the screenshots might actually help me remember my favorite
Yeah,
chapter.
sure. So as we're going through them, I would be interested to know what your favorite chapter was.
Yeah, because that was the way that he wrote this book, each chapter, it's like he pulled the most significant thing from the chapter, and that was the heading of the chapter. So it does make it bookmark what your favorite chapter was. Does that make sense? Like the way he titled this book was like, so each chapter was so digestible and had one main thing that made it clear that chapter was titled correctly. And each chapter was titled like a harbinger of what was to come. It was like kind of forecast, giving you an inkling of what was coming. Which was kind of cool.
A true master of email subject lines, if you will.
Yeah, you really knew what you were going to click into. So cool. Let me share some of these photos. I took quite a few, and these are just my favorite of the book, basically. So let me share a window. Okay. And then I'm going to just kind of click through some of these. So zoom in a touch. Oh, Trevor. Cool. Zoom in a tiny bit. So this is, I thought that this was interesting. This is talking about at the very beginning where one of the, she's like a sacred scars, but she's a part of, she's like a part of the Oriates or whatever. She's a part of this, and she's speaking to the Reds. I just thought this was like a cool way to set the scene, where she's like the propagandizing that they do right up front. It really lets you know you're getting into a political novel. And I thought it was cool. Like, so, they're brainwashing people. And she's saying like, you brave red pioneers of Mars, strongest of the human breed, sacrifice for progress, sacrifice to pave the way for the future. Your lives, your blood are a down payment for the immortality of the human race as we move beyond Earth and Moon. You go where we could not. You suffer so that others do not. I salute you. I love you. The helium-3 that you mine is lifeblood of a terraforming process. I just thought
the gaslighting is I mean, pinnacle of gaslighting here.
So it was pretty crazy. Like, so we're reading that, and you can understand how you could dupe a whole society into working. You know what I mean? Like, you dupe this whole society into thinking that, well, in a way, it's kind of like Darrow talks about it a lot. Like, being a Red gave him a sense of family, it gave him a sense of pride, a sense of love. Like, yes, he was being lied to, but in a lot of ways, he didn't fall prey to materialism because he didn't have that. And what he did have was relationships, and those relationships gave him his life so much meaning. So say what you want about
there's a lot of themes there of of this book, like just because you were the lowest of the low, you're better off than everybody else because you're not you're not rude, you're not reliant on all of these things, you have family, you have so much going for you that a lot of these golds don't. And they talk about how as they go to the institute, like, parents are just dropping these kids off and they know exactly what's going to happen. They're just survival of the fittest, whereas there's just no sense of family and community like there is.
They're being lied to, though. But like, so it's a bad thing with the good kind of a good societal result. Like, everybody in there is competing for the laurel or whatever, which is giving their the food that they need to survive. So they're living in a depraved situation. Like, they're starving. They're burning them. Like, they're doing a very dangerous job. People are dying. Like, so it is not a good situation. I do want to say that. Like, so they're slaves. But on the reverse of that, it's just so crazy that, like, through the brainwashing and the propagandizing and the structure it's given the society and the way that it works, kind of like the Lord Ruler from the last, like, from the Mistborn series, like, it's just so crazy to me that there was good to be had too in that system by way of creating identity for the people and culture, like a culture in the people. So it's very interesting. What did you think about the dancing? I really liked that.
Yeah, it's got kind of like some Dune vibes to it where, like every color has their own culture a little bit. And, I started thinking of like Tai Chi when one of the golds was dancing. I think it was Cassius was dancing. It was kind of more like a Tai Chi, like a martial arts situation. Or are you talking
No.
about like at the beginning?
Well, yeah, just the dancing in general. It's an interesting like element. It's an interesting element to the story
Yes,
for
totally.
Pierce to even include that. But then also like the Reaper dance, for example, the one that his father danced, that Darrow's father danced, that led to him being executed. I think the reason they don't want you to dance like that is because that teaches them to fight. Actually, like that is a weapon
Right.
with the sling blade in
Mr.
your
Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi.
yeah. Just instead of wax on, wax off, it's like it's actually martial arts moves. So like I think that's why it was outlawed, right? And why they don't want it is that's kind of like that is
Fighting
their
back. You don't
to
teach
fight.
these people how to fight back.
But I thought that was interesting, but I did like the cultural piece where like Darrow, you're supposed to learn from your dad, but his dad, had been executed by the society, by the archgovernor, for doing a forbidden dance, basically as part of a peaceful protest. But I thought it was cool, like it was something that was handed down, right? Like almost like how a dad
Hmm.
to tie a tie or something, or like there's certain things a dad teaches a son, but in this society, they teach you to dance. And there's music. I just thought that
Yeah.
was um this is just a cool sentence. Death isn't empty like you say it is. Emptiness is life without freedom, Darrow. Emptiness is living chained by fear of loss, of death. I say we break those chains, break the chains of fear, and you break the chains that bind us to the golds, to the society. Could you
Oh,
imagine it?
this is EO talking to Darrow when they find the hidden garden.
Yes, exactly, man. Wasn't that a nice scene? Just picturing them finding this hidden
Hmm.
world within a world. That was cool. And
Yeah, well, and they're
vision.
looking up, and Darrow's never seen the stars before. He's never seen the sun before. Um, a great way to just set the scene that like how oppressed these people are, that they don't even know what's going on above them. They're living essentially underground with a skylight above them, and
Yeah,
all they have is a jumbotron to show them what's going on in the rest of
yeah.
the world. So they think.
But I also just love how she had the vision. So much of what gives him that, so much of what makes him a visionary, like when EO dies, she doesn't just die, to rally the people. She dies to rally Darrow. She saw his
Hmm.
potential. She somehow knew. And that's what I wonder about this is like, was she somehow being fed this information from dancers, from others? Like they knew that she was the conduit that could like show Darrow, like instill in him the fight and the vision, because he didn't have that if it wasn't for her.
Hmm.
Somehow she was oddly prescient. Like she knew
Well,
things.
I was gonna say one of the things that I kind of thought about early on was they really talked about her beauty, and I think that they did that so you really bought into her, so that when she does die, that you're heartbroken a little bit more. But a part of me wants to think that she
Oh,
came from one of the greater colors, maybe even one of the golds, and somehow ended up, even though she knew Darrow when they were 16 and they got married, like did she somehow come from one of the golds, or one of the higher up colors that, instilled in her this perspective? Maybe it was at birth, or maybe she came from Earth and saw what the golds were and somehow ended up there, or whatever.
Well, if she did,
I have a feeling that she's got more of a lineage than just being a low red.
I feel like if that was the case, she would have shared more with Darrow about the reality.
But if it was just, do you think that he was so like, no, this is my life and I love it, and like, how could you try to take that away from me? Like, she almost had to. If she gave it to him cut and dry, do you think he would have even believed her?
No. Yeah, Darrow's complicated. But somehow Io definitely did seem like she was instilled with knowledge beyond her years and like a vision. And I get that, like, it doesn't talk about her family too much, or like why she was so against the system, or like what instilled that ability in her, because Reds don't have that, right? They are not leaders. Io was kind of a leader and drawn to Darrow, and like I think that she knew what she was doing when she showed him that room. So how'd she find that room? You know what I mean? Like, it makes me, that's right. How I felt like Dancer and them like must have got to Io to get to Darrow, was because Io was the only one that was worth Darrow doing anything for, or thinking different. I think his paradigm would never have happened if it wasn't through the conduit of Io. So I just love that. And I love this song, man. I usually hate songs and books and poems. I will say that might be contentious, but usually I despise them. I really like.
You're going to hate book 3 of Loch Lamora then. My God. It's like just mind numbing about a play. And they were literally reciting the play, and I'm like, I'll skip this whole chapter. But I did like this. The foreshadowing was great. I'm not a musician, so sometimes it's hard for me to read this the way that I'm supposed to. Yeah, to read it the way I'm supposed to. But
I kind of want to ask you to try it, but we don't know.
All right, I can try it. My love, remember the cries when winter died for spring skies. They roared and roared, but we grabbed our seed and sowed a song against their greed. And down in the vale, hear the reapers swing, the reapers swing, the reapers swing. Down in the vale, hear the reapers swing. You want me to sing it? Okay.
I want you to say sad.
Down in the vale, the reapers swing, the reapers swing, the reapers swing. Down in the vale, hear the reapers swing, a tale of winter done. Okay. My son, my son. You get it. I'm not a musician.
But yeah, like I actually really like this, and to your point, I like the foreshadowing about the reaper swing, and obviously that becomes a symbol for Darrow, and him having his swing blade with him, and etching that into and becoming a symbol for basically a motley crew of different houses and slaves who had abandoned their posts and things like that Darrow ends up leading at the very end of the book. So it's kind of cool that he included that in the song, and that Mustang was singing the song later on. It's just cool. I love that. Thank you so much for trying to sing that, Wes. Good job.
Put me on the spot, man. My God. I was always somebody in college that if it was silent, I'm like, all right, look, I'm going to answer the question. Let's get us out of here faster.
So I'm like,
look, if you call me a teacher's pet, I will punch you in the face. I just want to get us out of here faster. And it just so happens that I know the answer because I'm smarter than you.
That was good. Dude, this was crushing way to start the book. This is right when Io is about to get executed, and she knew exactly what she was doing. She sang that song. The archgovernor's there. The archgovernor calls her a mean word. And she mouths to Darrow, live for more. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out the hemanthus I gave her. It is smashed and flat. Then loudly, she screams to all those gathered, break the chains. And then I'll go to the bottom. Soon there is no sound, not even the creaking of the rope. My wife is too light. She was only just a girl. Then the thumping of the fading dirge begins. Fists on chests, thousands. Fast like a racing heartbeat. Slower. A beat a second. A beat every 5, every 10, then never again. And the mournful mass fades away like dust held in the palm as the old tunnels wail with deep winds and the golds, they fly away. That was
so. I mean, to visualize that is just
like
painful.
Him having to pull her little feet down and breaking her neck.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, what do you think that she whispers to her sister or the brother's wife or whatever? And so this goes back to my thought about her like coming from a higher gold or something, because he asked the sister and the sister's like, oh, she told me to tell you that she loves you.
I think I thought of it.
And so that's why I think that she was like, you know, the ruler of everybody is my aunt or something, like, and I knew this time was going to come.
I don't think she is a gold, because do you remember when Uncle Narol was supposed to kill and pull Darrow's feet when he's hung? And instead of pulling it, he whispers to him and says, say hi to Dancer for me. So he knew Dancer.
Well, that's actually not when he kills him. That's when
when he feeds him the drink.
When he feeds him the booze. Yeah, the booze. He says, say hi to Dancer for me.
So he knows the outside. Like, I think EO was just in on that too. And they, for whatever, you know what I mean?
So maybe that, yeah.
Although there were 97 failed carving attempts, Mickey says. So ostensibly, some of those people are still alive. They've been trying to break into the society, the Orient Society, for a long time. I don't know, maybe EO, but you know, EO was young. Darrow's known her forever. I just think that she was a conduit, man, and I think that she was a mouth to Darrow's soul, and was able to kind of crack the code and like instill in him a sense of purpose to break the chains. And she needed to die in order for him to deify her and for him to want to do more for her. So that's my guess.
No, and I totally agree. And you know, I think for me making predictions, I like having that harebrained scheme, because it's a good writer, the odds of it happening could come out there. So I like
you're not wrong. Man. I'll never say no. I want to definitely entertain that. This is what I was just talking about.
Oh, yeah.
This is what Narol says to Darrow. Tell him hello for me in Vale, he says into my ear, his beard coarse against my neck. Give my brothers a toast and my wife a kiss. Especially Dancer. Dancer? You'll know him. And if, this actually made me sad a little bit. And if you see your Gramp and Gran, tell him we still dance for him. They won't be long alone. He walks away.
I love that.
Now turning, says, break the chains here. Oh, that's a good couple of sentences, man. It's just like, I felt the emotion with that for some reason. It made me feel like it just made me feel like he was really talking to his uncle, and that, yes, him and his uncle didn't get along well. And, you know, it's a brutal society that they lived in, one where they would openly fight and mock each other, and very, very brutal. But there's still a lot of love there. So I thought that was cool. Oh, I'm interested to talk to you about this stuff, Wesley, because I will say I am not well learned when it comes to like the Roman emperors and Caesar and Nero and, you know, Alexander, the Greek gods and things like that. But clearly there's a lot of allusions to them in the story, and the Golds are essentially working to preserve the culture that they've built, this hierarchy that they've built, and breeding like the next Caesar, the next Alexander the Great, the next Nero. Do you have much context with some of that? Like, I'm sure a lot of little things went over my head. I didn't know the references.
Well, you know, like as you get later down, there's a lot of Greek mythology involved here. Like Apollo and Cassius, and
Yeah,
even like Pollux. He's one of the. There's a lot of twins involved here, um, that are referenced. But is this a specific chapter you want me to look at?
well, no, I just was thinking about it because what I've
Oh,
quoted
so
here,
yeah,
um,
I got, yeah.
talking about the Greek god Ares, who actually I didn't know. Like I wasn't aware of like
Mm-hmm.
that Greek god. I had to Google some of
Yeah,
this as I.
he was the god of war, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, I didn't know that. Um, but it says here, do you know why we call ourselves sons of Ares, Darrow? To the Romans, Mars was the god of war, a god of military, glory, defense of the hearth and home, honorable and all. But Mars is a fraud. He's a romanticized version of the god of Ares. So this was like he had kind of alluded to some of this stuff already, like the Greek gods and whatnot, but then it becomes more prominent throughout the story. And so I just found myself having to Google some of that, and I just don't know a lot about, like, I've never read, into some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like as we get deeper into some of the characters, like Cassius and Pollux
Yeah.
are the two faces of Gemini in the constellation.
Oh, no kidding. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they say Darrow's
Mm-hmm.
name is off color. It has nothing to do with probably what, like, a gold would typically be named. It seems like they're named after more regal things, like otherworldly things, the Greek gods, like probably the people in society that they mirror themselves after, the Romans.
Yeah, so actually it's not Cassius and Pollux, it's Castor and Pollux, which I believe are Gemini, and so I don't know if there's a Castor in the book.
Oh, well, I'll have to,
But anyhow,
it's not in the book, but maybe I'll fact check you later.
yeah.
Let's move forward. Oh yeah, this was the part where I said 97 have failed the carving. I also just like some of the like nomenclature, like bloody damn and stuff like that, and just like how different levels of the colors and stuff kind of have different speech patterns, which makes sense. Like there's dialects in real life too, right? And there's slangs, and there's certain, depending on the parts of even the country that you're in, you speak the same language, but you have different references. So I thought that was cool. Oh, yeah, this was when I was thinking about the book cover wing. When the entourage has scurried away, the box, he opens the box and dumps the contents on the table. 2 golden wings, the sigils of the gold, under the table. So that's the book cover wing.
Yeah, so the next chapter is titled The Carving, which is without a doubt my favorite chapter in the entire book.
Is it really?
My favorite chapter in the whole book, when they just are talking about, him becoming a god and his relationship with Mickey, and Mickey just pouring his heart and soul into this, like,
Mickey was
project that
crazy.
he's in. Yeah, Mickey was pretty crazy.
Like a genius,
and yeah, that chapter to me stood out as my favorite.
That was the chapter I think I got to, Wes, where I knew that this was going to be like, this was creative. Like I just thought that was I never, just like it was cool to see him metamorphizing and like going through the pain too, and coming out like, the ashes of a phoenix type thing, where like he came out an iron gold at the very end, but like how his tendons were growing. He was getting faster, and like kilometer in like a minute or something like that. And like the training that he was doing with harmony and things, like I really did like that. And then going back and forth with Mickey.
Yeah, I just think it just sets the scene so much of like the turmoil that Darrow had to go through, and just how much different the golds are than the low reds. And it just because if you didn't have a scene like that talking about how different he is, then it's just, it loses its importance of how crazy
Correct.
strong and large and impressive these guys are.
Great point. Yeah, that's a really good point. It sets a stage for like the chasm between like a low red and a gold.
Mm-hmm.
They are gods essentially in comparison, and it also sets some vision where it starts. It says here what I've bracketed. Mickey's jaw muscles flicker under his skin as he ignores me. You're making a savior, he accuses, looking over at Dancer. Dancer, you bastard, you're making a messiah for your gory damn cause. I never looked at it this way. My skin prickles uneasily. Yes, is Dancer's answer. So they were working like, and he kind of towards the end does become a messiah. And he starts that too. So it's like they planted that seed early, and you needed this chapter, the Carver chapter, to do that. So yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting chapter. I'm gonna move forward a little bit. I just thought that this was interesting. Like these were just some tidbits where Mickey's like kind of like he's talking about, you know, the culture of this place. But he says they're talking about power, and Darrow says power isn't real; it's just a word. Mickey ponders silently, then he shrugs his thin shoulders. Mankind was always enslaved, they'll say. Freedom enslaves us to lust, to greed. Take freedom away, and they give me a life of dreaming. They gave you life as sacrifice, family, community, and society is stable. There's no famine, no genocide, no great wars. When the golds fight, they obey rules. They are noble about it when the great house is bigger. So I thought that was interesting. It's like making an argument for hierarchy and castes in society, and making an argument for like selective breeding, and like justifying the slavery that they impose on the Reds.
Mm-hmm. So it's funny you bring this up because I just watched a parody video or a voiceover video on Instagram where if you're a Game of Thrones fan, there's a character called Varys where he's a eunuch and he's just like an advisor, and he always has these like very sage phrases where he's talking about how power is perceived by the man that holds it. Kings and queens have power, but it's truly the knights and the people on the battlefield that truly wield it. And he talks about how he's talking to one of the Tyrion Lannister, and he goes, even a small man can cast an incredibly large shadow. And I just think that this is just a great correlation of like, you know, power is truly in the eyes of the beholder, right? You don't have to rule the empire or the galaxy to be the most powerful. It's who has the most power to change perspectives and change minds and truly be a leader versus one that just calls the shots.
Yeah. That's something this book actually does a pretty decent job of just like exploring the paradigms of power, right? Like you have Pax, obviously physically imposing. Then you have Roke, power of words, power of strategy. You know, then you have like, you could look, actually, it's a big continuum of power, and you could plot all of these characters on it in terms of like mental, physical, emotional, you know, tactical, strategic powers that they have. And obviously all of those, like you put Darrow as like in the center of the Venn diagram of power, where he's kind of the apex of all the different types of powers that you can yield to become, you know, truly in charge. But yeah, this book explores that a little bit, and it's pretty interesting. Oh, this was sweet, man. Mickey, I guess I had more from this chapter too than I thought I had highlighted. But he mentions Mickey saying, your heart is like that of a stallion's. I've never glimpsed one like it before. You were bitten by a pit viper when you were young, I assume? I was, yes. I thought so. Your heart had to adjust to counteract the effects of the poison. My uncle sucked most of the poison out when I was bitten, I say. No, Mickey laughs. That's a myth. The poison cannot be sucked out. It still runs through your veins, forcing your heart to be strong if you want to continue to live. You're something special, just like me. So even as a gold, no gold's been bitten by a pit viper. No Cassius has been bitten by somebody. So like he is kind of this special breed. He's almost been it's almost like it was on purpose that he was a red that became a gold, and it's just like the cycle of the society is one where it's kind of like in decadence, I believe, is what the Archgovernor refers to. There's the 3 stages, and it's in collapse. Kind of like they're too content. It's almost like they selectively bred Darrow for this. Like, and he is something special by design.
Well, you know, and it goes to the point we were just talking on a different episode where, you know, because he was bitten by that pit viper, he is different, and you would never be bitten by a pit viper unless you were a low red and you were in those mines. And so, you know, it's just, I imagine that Darrow at the end of the series is going to become, you know, amazing and a god or whatever, but he could never have been that if he never got bitten by the pit viper in the mine as a low red.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's going to be crazy resolution at the very end, because obviously throughout the story he's starting to empathize with the golds too. He has made friends. He's a lover in Mustang. Like,
yeah, and
it'd be crazy.
I was talking to somebody else that has read this trilogy, and they were saying about like, dude, it just keeps getting better and better because all you've known is Mars and the Institute, but this story spans the galaxy. And so books 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, just continue to expand on this world that you don't even really know exists, which is what makes me so excited to keep reading.
Yeah, agreed. I just thought this was a small detail, dude, that I like that he baked this in there. Dancer gives me the knifeRing he used to slice my finger months before, but he's reshaped it to look like an L. They will think it the chevron the Spartans bore on their shields, he said. L for Lacedaemonia, but it's L for Lycos, for Lambda. Harmony surprises me by taking my right hand, kissing where my red sigil was emblazoned. He's got tears in one eye, the cold, unscarred eye. The other cannot cry. I just thought that was cool. The L and the knifeRing, and then obviously ends up using the knifeRing to take down what was the Apollo, the proctor over House Apollo, and stabs him in the eye with it. And Fitchner gives him back this knifeRing and says it was from friends. I think obviously like it's coming back from Dancer. And so I just think that was kind of interesting, like how, remember when Fitchner gives Darrow the knifeRing back?
Yeah.
Where did he get that? And obviously Darrow then uses that to kill. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting connect. And I love that the L in his mind still like stands for Lycos, still stands for Lambda, and which represent his family, his culture. And it's like, I'll never forget his red roots. Here it was. Society has 3 stages: savagery, ascendance, decadence. The great rise because of savagery. They rule in ascendance. They fall because of their own decadence. So it makes sense that they're in decadence. So you can't, what's the old adage? Hard times make hard men make easy times like make weak men, like that whole cycle. And it goes all
right,
become strong to create good times. So anyways, they're in decadence. Golds are floundering, even though they have all of the skill, all this ability, etc. Like, it would make sense to me to have to dredge someone up from the bowels of society like a low red, and then like instill in them gold properties and take the cycle to go back from savagery to ascendance.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because this could also be foreshadowing into Darrow's story arc. 3 stages savagery, right? He just went through the Institute. He became a savage. He had to kill somebody to start with the Institute. Ascendance, right? He's now started his ascension into being incorporated into the golds, and I'm sure he's going to move his way up. maybe even kills the arch governor. And then, at the end, decadence, maybe he's become truly a gold, and he's, you either live long enough to see yourself, what is it? You live long enough to see yourself become the villain, or you die a good guy or whatever.
See yourself become the hero or the villain. Yeah, I know what you're saying. That is a great point, man. I love that you paralleled that back to his own story arc rather than just the society at large. Very good point. I have to imagine he's going to have to remember. I have to imagine he'll find himself in his own self in that third stage and have to remember his
well, and if you think about the 3 covers of the books, you've got the sigil on one. You've got the second one is the gold laurel, and then the third one goes back to the scythe or whatever. And so I'm picturing maybe, towards the end of book 2, and I'll circle back on this if we do predictions at the end, where he's under the arch governor's wing. Maybe he takes over from the arch governor to where he can now rule Mars and be in a position of power to give Lambda the laurel, because even though they hit all their metrics, they were never able to get the laurel from Gamma. And so maybe he's in a position of power to where he can make that decision to give the laurel to Lambda, kill the arch governor, and then maybe book 3 is when he tries to kill whatever her name is, like the galaxy ruler or something.
Right.
But he's got to go back to his roots. Something, I don't know.
Yeah, dude, very, very interesting. I hadn't considered any of that. Smart. That'd be cool. I like this one part 2, like when his statistics came back. I thought this was a fun chapter for me, actually. Whatever chapter this one was, where they had to go through the testing and stuff, and his statistics.
Yeah.
Supposedly, I am very rash and have upper outlier characteristics and intuition and loyalty, and most notably rage. Rage is the hidden secret for him that he's able to. That is where the John Wick part comes from, and the guy just is like, the guy can't die. It's just like he just finds a way to, like, you just know he's going to make it through. Just same way when you're watching John Wick, it's like, that whatever fight he's in, it doesn't matter the odds he's stacked up against, he's going to prevail. That's just
he's going to win.
Have with Darrow, like the guy's going to win, and that's what makes it fun. Like, at no point do I question Darrow's ability to get through it. This was a good. I just thought this was good writing here. Talking about EO. I whisper her name. I take the wedding band from my pocket and kiss it. Feel the ache. They stole her, but she let them. She left me. She left me tears and pain and longing. She left me to give me anger. And I cannot help but hate her for a moment, even though beyond that moment, there's only love. EO, I whisper in the locking closet. Man, I love how I love how much he loved his wife. Like that, and I like that Pierce continues to remind you of how, like, sweet their love was, and like just that's a complicated emotion. For a moment,
yeah, man.
Like, he gave me, I cannot help but hate her for a moment, even though beyond that single moment there is only love. So it's interesting.
Have we gotten to the part in the book yet where, he's got to kill Cassius's brother, Julian?
Boom. Funny that you mentioned it.
Right here.
Next. This is, I think I texted you after this, and I had to take a break. I don't want to do this. I can't explain how badly I don't want to hurt Julian. But when has what I wanted ever mattered? My people need this. Io sacrificed happiness in her life. I can sacrifice my wants. I can sacrifice the slender princeling. I can even sacrifice my soul. I make the first move toward Julian. Darrow, he murmurs. Darrow was kind in Lycos. I am not. I hate myself for it. I think I'm crying because my vision is unclear. And he kills him. And
Insane.
I also thought it, oh, dude, that was, I don't want to read that second part just because I feel like it's gory. But then it says, they want me to kill him because he didn't do well on their tests. This is a mismatch. I am Darwin's scythe. Nature scraping away the chafe. I don't know how to kill. I've never killed a man. I have no blade, no thumper, no scorcher. It seems impossible that I could make this boy of meat and muscle bleed dry just with my hands. dude, and they're naked in the room. That was just another element that just made it so barbaric to me and so freaking brutal. That was crazy, Wes. This was my favorite chapter, and this was the next part was my favorite sentence, like my favorite passage. But I liked how this chapter started. And he says, my hands tremble as the blood dribbles off them on the cold stone, rivers along the golden sigils upon my hands. I'm a hell driver, but the sobs come even as the tears are gone. His blood trickles from my knee down my hairless shin. It's red, not golden. My knees feel the stone and my forehead touches it as I sob till exhaustion fills my chest. When I look up, he is still dead. Thought that was such a great opener. And then I absolutely loved this sentence where he said, there's nowhere to wipe the blood, only stone and 2 naked bodies. This is not who I am, who I want to be. I want to be a father, a husband, a dancer. Let me dig in the earth. Let me sing the songs of my people and leap and spin and run along the walls. I would never sing the forbidden song. I would work. I would bow. Let me wash dirt from my hands instead of blood. I want only to live with my family. We were happy enough. Freedom cost too much, but Io disagreed. Damn her. Man, I loved that.
It just speaks volumes of his unwavering commitment to doing this for Io and not for himself.
Correct. Yeah, man. That so she ends up being critical. Like her death, he alludes to it so much, is so critical. But just to kind of fast forward through the rest of this, like I did love how the game was a microcosm of society designed to teach them through extreme trial by fire why hierarchy is critical to prevail. And it really pounds in the life lessons and like the teachings that they want you to learn. And that one of the quotes is like, it talks about how step by step the game evolves them to teach them new lessons, and that hierarchies within the game develop. They'll have reds, golds, coppers. They start off as separate houses, but then slowly, metamorphose into a single beating heart, basically with a brain, with brawn, with a leader, with factions, and everybody has to come in line in order for them to win, which is how the world works. So I thought that's the crux of the book, and it's so good.
I'm actually glad that we spent the majority of this time talking about Darrow's conflict, because I think when you get to the other half of the book, it's all action and whatnot, and it's kind of scene by scene. But the first half is, I think is really what sets the trilogy up. Obviously you have to figure out how he grapples with his internal conflict and how he navigates the challenges of leadership and, just the turmoils of this challenge that he's in. But,
yeah,
ultimately he obviously prevails. But some of my other favorite characters were, I loved Sevro being the wolf man, just off on his own, finding out that his dad was the proctor. And that was definitely a highlight for me. And then the entire Cassius relationship and how strong it was, truly brothers to the end, until he realized that, Darrow took Julian down, and that completely changed things for him. And, I kind of wanted that relationship to get mended, but I'm so happy that it didn't.
Well, that's not life. And that was one of the things that made me so pleasantly surprised at the end, where it makes you think that Mustang is going to betray him. At that point, I thought I had known like Pierce well enough to recognize that he's not going to give you the out. Like the thing that you want is not going to happen, because life is too brutal and it doesn't work that way. And so, like, of course, Mustang is going to side with her brother, the Jackal, which is a huge plot twist, and backstab Darrow, who would have been soul crushing. So, like, I was fully anticipating that to happen, and when it doesn't, it was like a surprise that sometimes life can surprise you too. Like, people can be loyal, and but that was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I would agree with you there. I was so happy when that happened. I was so ready to be let down and that almost be like a cliffhanger to set up book 2. And I'm really happy to have his band of misfits carry on, hopefully, in through book 2, even though the arch governor, when he's offering him the apprenticeship, is like, look, man, none of this is going to carry over. Like you're never, some of these people you're never going to meet again. And I like that he had that dialogue because it makes you think that all of these characters are going to go away, and it makes room for a lot more.
Yeah.
But I just know Mustang and Sevro are coming back.
Yeah. Dude, now that Sevro only has one eye, I imagine him growing up to look exactly like Mad Eye Moody in Harry Potter.
Yes,
just novel, kind of like brash, like, you know, heathen kind of that just bucks society and just has their own unique perspective. Like, yeah, dude, Sevro was an incredible character, and I love the dynamic between him and his dad being a proctor and, like, you know, wanting his son to live, and so he does help Darrow. And there's only one more thing.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you first.
I was gonna say one of my other just favorite scenes is when him and Mustang are laying side by side in the snow, like waiting to attack. I think it's like House Ceres or House Jupiter, and they're laying in the snow, covered up. Like that to me was something I could totally picture, and was totally had Jon Snow vibes of Game of Thrones.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that dynamic. I also loved the little Trojan horse thing that they did with literal horses when they hid inside the horses to ambush. I think Minerva. That was cool. And then later,
another ode to Greek mythology.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm thinking, yeah, great connection. Yeah. And then also, then later on, they kind of call those kids the dead horses too. Like, I just like how, yeah, like these different like cultural conventions that crop up over time. They call Sevro's people the wolf pack, and they wear the wolf skins, and like it's just such
the howlers.
The howlers. This book is a great example of power dynamic and how to foster leadership and like lessons learned. How good of a lesson was it when Darrow had himself whipped in order to help flip the paradigm that you're not slaves, like that your actions don't just have repercussions to yourself, but to me, and you love me and you need me.
I think when they meet Apollo and Apollo comes down and Pollux is like, Darrow let me whip him. Are you going to let me whip you?
Yeah. That was the lesson he taught them. It's brilliant, man. And in that same chapter, I believe this was chapter like 36, one of the quotes was, he says this to Tactus after the whole whipping thing. He goes, "You do not follow me because I am the strongest, Pax is. You do not follow me because I'm the brightest, Mustang is. You follow me because you do not know where you're going. I do." What a great couple of sentences.
Powerful. That's powerful.
That's powerful, man. I thought that was good. And remember towards the beginning how I was saying like he has this punchy sort of writing style? This was the last picture I'll share. And I thought this like exactly demonstrates what I mean by punchy.
Yeah. As you're pulling this up, you know, we have a video earlier in the channel about how you know, fiction, fantasy, whatever, non-fiction can be so much more impactful than a self-help book on leadership or whatever. I would say that this book is a way better lesson on how to be a true leader than any sort of management book or leadership self-help book could ever be.
Dude, I had so many revelations in this book. Especially with Fitchner talking, some of the dialogue between Fitchner and Darrow, where Darrow is talking about, you know, life is the greatest teacher, and he's kind of breaking things down, and like, yeah, just the different ways that Darrow makes fumbles, and like one of the big fumbles that he makes at the beginning is letting kill Titus, and then Roke has like a really clever jab at him where he's like explaining why that was the wrong move, and the impression that created with the other people. Like, oh man, the politicking and the angles and the leadership fostering that happens is a masterclass. And
yeah,
to your point,
without a doubt,
way more relatable than a self-help book. But yeah, this was I just really liked this bit here of the writing style. This is what I meant by punchy. Like, the game has begun, and now everyone wants to be the Primus. I see why democracy is illegal. First comes yelling, frustration, indecision, disagreements, ideas, scout, fortify, gather food, lay traps, blitz, raid, defense, offense, Pollux spits. Titus knocks him out cold. Antonia leaves. Sevro says something snide to Titus and drags his wolf off to God knows where, never having lit a fire. It's like my Lambda drill team whenever a head talk would take an hour sick. That's how I learned I could drill. Barlow snuck off to take a smoke, and I hopped on the rig and did as I thought was best. I do the same now as the children bicker. I just love that. That's what I meant by, like, I don't know. I just thought that was a cool...
He painted so many pictures in one paragraph of multiple points in Darrow's life, what's going on, with just 2 words and a bullet, or and a period. And so that to me is what makes the pacing so good in this book, and so easy to visualize versus it being drawn out. And he could have written an entire chapter about the first time that he got in a drill, but he was able to make me feel the emotion and visualize it in 7 words.
Yeah, exactly. And like, he still had like some writing devices built in. Like, one of the things that I thought I did really well with was the way he intensified the rising action by the Jackal being the greater looming threat. There were threats within threats within threats. And the greater looming threat that you find out around like chapter 20 or so is the Jackal. And you don't know who that is or where they're coming. And it's like, you might have a small victory in this chapter, but still out there is the Jackal. And so I thought that was a good way to like that's how it became thrilling to me. It's like, I still had that looming, like, this thing could, like, who scares Darrow could be coming any moment, like the Boogie Monster. So that was an example of a good writing device. But all right, man, I want you to give me a rating. Do you think you could give me a 1 to 10 on this bad boy?
Yeah, all in 8-9 any day of the week.
Dude, awesome. Yeah, I had it firmly rooted as an 8-3 in my mind coming into this. I don't know. I thought it was awesome. I think I like books that I liked his writing style. I do like a little bit more detail, and I do think sometimes I like the complicatedness sometimes of a story and having to be a student of the story. I was on a ride and I didn't have to work for it. I sometimes like having to work for it, and I think some people don't. But I mean, I was a ride that I enjoyed and I'd want to hop back on. The second I got done with it, couldn't wait to buy book 2. So
yeah, I would agree with you there. I do like to have to work for it a little bit. There was no working here. Like I said at the beginning, there were no question marks at the end of a chapter. And if there was a question mark, it started on the literal next sentence of the next page. And so, I am somebody that likes a page turner, so I think I would rate that higher than some other books. So
yeah, but it was,
I
dude,
think that plays into my rating
of a page turner. Yeah, awesome ratings. I'm really happy we're doing this, and that we're gonna have more stomach churning thrills to come. I'm probably gonna crack into this book 2 soon, if not today, probably tomorrow or this weekend. So, This was a lot of podcasting. This is a marathon. Thanks for holding in there.
Baby.
I feel excited, and I feel. Did you type in the chat? Oh, you did type in the chat.
I typed into a chat one of my predictions, but I covered it about the covers and how I
Oh,
think
okay.
he's going to. And I'm glad I typed that into the chat prior
Oh,
to you bringing up the ascension, the savagery, the ascension, and
oh,
then
nice,
decadence.
dude. That's
So
another
it
reason
worked out
I
nicely.
I, I kind of like. I've enjoyed doing this virtual because like there's a lot of features to this that make it dynamic when we're like you could look some stuff
Hmm.
up, like I could share screen. Did you like me sharing the photos? I mean obviously I
Yeah.
was doing a pretty deep dive, but I thought that was kind of a that was a novel way for
Well,
us to relive the beginning of the story, and I loved how this book started.
yeah, no, and I'm glad that we spent the sharing chapters of the first half versus the second half, because the second half reads like an action story, whereas the first half is that first episode of a series that people watch, that everybody says this is an amazing show, you have to watch it, but the first episode is slow. Like,
Yeah,
I love those first episodes that are slow and that I get the payoff at the end, and so I think that that's how this book was written, and I think that's how we kind of filmed this episode. And I'm extremely excited to see where book two goes.
awesome. Yeah, you couldn't have wrapped up this episode any better, W. So all right, Bubba. Well, I'm gonna let you get back to it. Crack into book two when you get a minute.
You know, I'm going to, baby. I'll talk to you soon, Bubba.
All right. Bye bye now. Good stuff.